Welcome to The Jewish Lens, a podcast to discuss anything and everything from a Jewish perspective. Now, please help me welcome the man who controls the media, your host, Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen. I almost got my name wrong. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome someone who was the former Israeli ambassador to Chile, and she's currently the Senior Vice President of International Affairs at the Anti-Defamation League, where she leads efforts to combat anti-Semitism and hate globally. Please help me welcome Marina Rosenberg. Marina, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for the invitation, Jonathan. I'm super happy to be here with you.
Well, we have a lot to cover. Your background is unbelievable. You have done so many things, but I always like to start by going back with people. So you were born in Argentina, I read. So I want to know, what was your family life like, in particular with regard to Judaism?
So I was born in Buenos Aires in Argentina to a non-religious Jewish family. We always had a connection to Israel and to Judaism through culture, history, but a bit less on the religious part. Like I can't remember myself going to synagogue as a child.
Really? Okay.
And we moved to Israel when I was 6. We made Aliyah because my sister moved there when I was young, and we moved after her to a kibbutz. So I grew up in a kibbutz of Hashomer Hatzair, which you're probably familiar with.
Well, you moved. Your sister moved first, and that's what made you move?
Yeah. So my sister went on one of those typical trips of young Jews to Israel, and she fell in love with her madrich, the guy that was in charge of her group. I'm sure you heard this story before.
I have heard this story many times, yes.
So they stayed there, they got married, started a family, and my parents wanted to reunite the family. So we moved there, and we changed our lives.
You and I probably moved to Israel close to the same time. I was judging on our ages. I moved to Israel right around that time for a couple of years. We were going to live there. I moved to Jerusalem to, Amakaz Klita, but we stayed there a couple of years, and I came back. But you stayed, so.
We stayed. My mom still lives there.
Oh wow! Okay.
My father passed away, and she's still in the kibbutz in my hometown.
So you basically grew up in Israel, is that right? So throughout your career in various capacities, so you've been involved, I saw, in international relations and diplomatic service. So how did you first get involved in that?
So, as an Argentinian that moved to Israel, as a child, I was very connected to both countries.
Okay.
And I always had like this by connection that I felt both Israeli, Argentinian, and I didn't know what I'm more of. And when I was around 10, 12, and people would ask me, what would you like to be when you grow up? I said I wanted to be Israel's ambassador to Argentina because I felt that would be a way to connect my two parts. And unfortunately, I could never be Israel's ambassador to Argentina because I have double nationality. But I got to live my dream through being Israel's ambassador to Chile.
I was going to ask you about that for sure. Yes. You didn't know that you couldn't be that you cannot be based upon that you came from Argentina. You weren't allowed.
So according to the policy of the MFA, you're supposed, both in Israel and also in Argentina, it was complicated, and you have to either give up your second nationality. And you cannot give up an Argentinian nationality, ever.
Oh, wow.
Because Argentinians are so proud that they cannot even have the concept of giving up their nationality. And I'm a proud Argentinian, just as I'm a proud Israeli.
Well, we have a lot in common. I'm not Argentinian, but I'm half Mexican, so we have a lot. Yes. So earlier in your career, so you were the special envoy to the Arab Gulf and also head of the mission, Israeli office for UAE. All of this was well before the Abraham Accords. So, how were the relationships then, and what groundwork was laid out for you to make things easier in the future?
I feel really privileged today and back then. I was a very young diplomat coming out of the diplomatic academy. And my first post abroad was to the Gulf countries.
Wow.
And it was such a secret, even within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that I couldn't tell my colleagues and friends in the ministry where I was going. So everything was very low key. Only a few people knew about it. And we focused a lot on just creating new partnerships and reaching out to people, both in the government, but also, in the private sector and civil society and academia, and just to start a dialogue about Israel, Arab countries, what do we have in common, what interests we have in common. And even back then, I remember, Jonathan, arriving there and being surprised. I wasn't obviously shouting in the street that I'm an Israeli diplomat, but when people found out that I was Jewish, or people that knew that I was Israeli, we were always received with such a warm reception.
Really?
And
Wow.
open arms. And that really changed my whole perception about the Arab world. Because I think, we all grow up with these thoughts in our mind that we know our neighbors and know what they think, and just everything changed for me. And I was always a big believer in dialogue and the prospect to get eventually to peace with our neighbors. But living in the Gulf, and I traveled a lot there between the countries, really just it made it very clear for me that eventually it will be public and open relationship. I still hope that the Abraham Accords will grow, because there's other countries there in the region that have a lot in common, not just political strategic interests, but also when it comes to just
Culturally.
code and culture and values as well.
One of the things you just said, it fascinates me, because I've always read about Israel has relations with certain countries which no one can publicize. So is that how it was then for you?
Yeah, this was really the beginning, and it was a very, very small team working in silence and a bit in a silo. But this is the real work of a diplomat at the end. Yeah, being in a country that had diplomatic relations for dozens of years or centuries for certain countries, that's wonderful, and you just try to maintain them. But to create something from zero when there's nothing there, that's the real challenge. And being part of it, really, I feel that I was giving a great opportunity and honor. Though, to be very honest, the first time that I was presented with the fact that I'm going to the Gulf, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't even know it was an option. I did not speak Arabic. I was, but it was wonderful. And I'll tell you a little secret, that my son was born in the Gulf, and as far as we know, he was the first Israeli to be born in the Gulf countries.
Oh, that's amazing. That's fantastic.
Still waiting for citizenship until this video.
So how did you go from that to becoming the ambassador to Chile? How did that happen?
Look, I joined the ministry, and for me it was obvious that they will send me to Latin America.
Okay.
Right? This was like, I'm Argentinian, speak Spanish, culture-wise, I relate very much to the Latino culture. And then they sent me to the opposite, to Arab countries in the Middle East, because when you join the ministry, you don't really have a choice, right? As a cadet in the academy. But I'm happy that it happened, because eventually I got to Latin America, which is what I wanted from the beginning. Right. But I had this diverse experience in the Middle East, later on in Europe, because we went to Germany, where my daughter was born. So I'm glad that I had this opportunity to get so many regions in the world, because it's such a different experience when you live there for a few years, right, in each country. And it's not just as a tourist that you go through Berlin and you think you know Germany. So I'm happy that I had that experience. And, if you would ask me which of the 4 postings that I had abroad was the best, I couldn't choose, because I was really so lucky that each one of them was an exceptional experience.
Okay, so how did you wind up then from doing all this diplomatic? How did you wind up at the ADL?
So, look, after nearly 17 years at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and getting to the top of being ambassador, an opportunity came up. I knew ADL's work, especially from my work in Chile, because in Chile, not many people know, but you have the biggest Palestinian community outside of the Middle East lives in Chile. Most of them are Christians. Most of them left at the times of the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire. But there's a lot of anti-Semitism over there, unfortunately, especially in the past 10, 15 years, when we've seen a radicalization in the leadership of the Palestinian community over there, with negative attitudes towards the Jewish community. So I dealt a lot with fighting anti-Semitism when I was ambassador, including fighting BDS, the boycott against Israel. Right. And I was in touch with ADL and also with other US and international Jewish organizations. And then this opportunity came, and I decided that, I loved being a diplomat, but it was time for me to see things from a different perspective and to try and serve the Jewish people, not just in one country, but in the world in general. And this is what I'm trying to do now.
Well, so since October 7th, there's been such a huge surge in anti-Semitism all around the world. Okay. So in your opinion, what are the most alarming patterns that you've seen, like, going on internationally?
Look, so first, the numbers. Yeah, when we talk about the numbers of anti-Semitic incidents around the world, as you know, here in the US, we're talking about nearly 900% rise in anti-Semitism in the past 10 years. Right. In Australia, from before October 7th to 2025, it's 5 times more anti-Semitic incidents. And you can see the same in most of the countries with the largest Jewish communities. Secondly, it's the violence of the attacks. We've been seeing in the past 2 years more violent attacks in more countries. Only last year, in 2025, we had 20 people being killed in anti-Semitic terror attacks around the world, in Bondi Beach, here in Washington, D.C., in Boulder, Colorado, in Manchester. This is a pattern that it's not that we didn't have in the past anti-Semitic terror attacks, but it wasn't so diverse regionally all over the world. And of course, we've been seeing here in the US and in most countries where there is a rise in anti-Semitism, more anti-Semitic incidents that are connected to Israel or Zionism. So in the US, according to ADL's audit of 2024, this is 58% of the anti-Semitic incidents that are related to Israel or to Zionism. So this is specifically a post-October 7th result that we're seeing. And we're seeing maybe more than before this collaboration, let's say, or a joint interest between different groups that on paper should have nothing in common, right? Like radical Islamic or Islamist organization, and far left organizations, and even far right ideology. And, Jewish people like to unite everybody, and we unite also our haters, apparently.
Well, because that movement just ingratiates themselves on every single other movement, and they insert themselves in there, like, oh, we're this is us too, so work with us. But so one of the biggest problems I also see now is all the Jew hate is the explosion of an online distortions, propaganda, lies, but it's spread in widely places like TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. So in your opinion, what can be done to combat that? And what is the ADL doing about that?
Yeah, so I'll tell you that ADL puts a lot of effort in research and data so we can use it for advocacy and to have real impact here in the US and around the world. And one of our research centers is specifically focused on the issue of technology, social media platforms, gaming platforms, as well as artificial intelligence. Only this week we released a new report about LLMs, the large language models of artificial intelligence, and how they react to anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism. And the bottom line is that there's a lot that needs to be improved. Even in those that are doing a bit better, it's simply not good enough, and they don't know how to fight disinformation, hate, and anti-Semitism. On the positive side, we also have done research on how effective can we train chatbots of artificial intelligence to educate people against anti-Semitism, hate, and discrimination. And we've seen that it can be effective. So we are looking into how we can fight a negative use of technology, but also how to use technology, and especially artificial intelligence, in order to fight anti-Semitism. Now, we've been in touch with, when it comes to social media, look, I mean, obviously, first of all, this is the responsibility of the social media platforms, and we've been in dialogue with them constantly for many years. We have also a rating that we do of the social media platforms and how well they deal with anti-Semitism in their platforms. But it's also the responsibility of legislators around the world, as well as governments, to give clearer guidelines or to have clearer legislation when it comes to hate speech and disinformation.
Okay, I was going to ask you about AI, and you just answered it. But okay, let's go on to the governments, because your main role is combating anti-Semitism on an international level. So when you see policies, countries adopt policies that seem to reward terrorism, like certain countries have recognized the Palestinian state. So is that something that the ADL would get involved with, or is it something that's just left to the Israeli government to deal with?
No, absolutely. I mean, at the end, fighting terrorism is the responsibility of all of us. It's not just the responsibility of the state of Israel. The threats that Hamas poses or Hezbollah poses on Israel is exactly the same threat that they pose on Jewish communities around the world. I mean, Hezbollah has presence in Europe, in Latin America. They've been involved in the past in either terror plots or terror attacks against Jewish and Israeli targets around the world. Sponsored, of course, by Iran, that is seen as the number one exporter of terrorism and anti-Semitism. So as an organization that fights anti-Semitism around the world, we cannot not fight terrorism, especially anti-Semitic terrorism, that is targeting Jewish communities. We have seen only in the past couple of years, Iran has been involved in anti-Semitic incidents in Australia, in Greece, and in other countries around the world. This was proven by the Australian authorities and European authorities. We've been seeing how terror cells of Hezbollah have been caught in Brazil and in other countries in Latin America. So we're not talking about a threat of the past. This is a very actual threat that is still present here. So what do we do about it? For example, currently now, the European Union is going to have a vote in the next few days about the IRGC, and finally designating them as a terror organization. Yeah, it was about time. But this is something that we actively advocate for in letters, in our meetings. I met also heads of states that have very problematic policies towards Israel, like the foreign minister of Spain, the prime minister of Ireland, the foreign minister of Norway. I always think that the best way is still to have a dialogue and to have clear messaging as to why certain policies, and by the way, like, it's absolutely fine, of course, for any government to disagree with the policies of the government of Israel and even to be vocal about it. The question is how they pronounce their opinions and what effect it has on negative actors in their countries that are anti-Semitic and are using that policy of their own government to target Jewish communities. So when the prime minister in Spain says that Israel is a genocide state and that it's okay to attack Israeli athletes that come to Spain to compete in an international competition, so that gives empowerment to negative actors to actually go and attack not just Israelis, but what they call Zionists, which includes everybody, Israelis, Jews, non-Jews that support Israel, etc. And that normalizes anti-Semitism and violence against Jewish communities in their own countries and around the world.
So do you get involved like on a more local level as well? Because you're talking about the heads of state and what the countries are doing, but let's say like specific cities, because it's just untenable. Some of it, like Toronto, Paris, London, and even New York. I'm from New York, and it's just been horrendous. So do you get involved on a more local level as well?
Yeah. So first you mentioned New York, and as you know, the NYPD said that in 2025, anti-Semitic incidents represented 57% of all hate crimes reported in New York.
More than all the others combined, right? Yeah.
This is just shocking. So ADL has 25 offices around the US who are very much involved on a local level in the different states in the US, right? We do have international teams. I have my team in Israel and in Europe and in Latin America, but we don't have the same infrastructure that we have here in the US. So what we do in order to get involved locally and make sure that we help to protect the Jewish communities is to work with the Jewish communities in each country or city or region. We cannot do it alone. It's not one organization that can fight anti-Semitism on its own. We have to have partnerships, and this is what we do through our partners around the world. And it's not just Jewish communities. Yes, it's also government representative. It's also civil society, also analysts and think tanks that help with the research. We focus quite a bit also on educating. So we have educational programs for Jewish youth to give them tools to fight anti-Semitism, and for non-Jewish schools to educate them about the local Jewish community and how to fight anti-Semitism. So we work with the Jewish organizations in the different countries around the world in order to give these educational tools to the community, to schools, to governments around the world. And with their help, we're hoping to change the narrative, change hearts and minds, and educate people about Jewish life and anti-Semitism.
How receptive are these places when you speak to them? Like, that you give something about what can be done to prevent. Are these places receptive, or they're just like ignoring and like, we're not interested?
That's a great question. So I think it depends on the country and the region, right? Because you have some countries that we have a dialogue with the government or with the Ministry of Education for them to basically adopt our program and to be the ones that is sending it to schools around the country, right? So that is happening in a few countries in Europe, for example. In other countries, there is less of either possibility or will from the government or the Ministry of Education. And then we have to actually, together with the Jewish organizations on the ground, to go school by school or municipality by municipality or governor by governor and get them on board. I would say that all in all, I'm positively surprised that people are not just willing, but they understand the need to do something. So like just the numbers of anti-Semitic incidents in the Western world specifically is just so shocking that authorities, including local authorities, understand that they have a real problem. And I think that many governments and local governments understand that this is not just about Jewish safety. This is a real threat to our democratic values. And if we don't do something about it, it's going to get worse, and it's going to attack also other communities and not just the Jews. Not that it's bad enough already that Jews are under attack, of course. So there are a lot of people that are collaborating and helping and adopting our educational tools, are listening to our advocacy requests and taking real action.
So just speaking about the educational tools, I was going to ask you about that because I know you've highlighted the need for transitioning from Holocaust commemoration to active, like talking about anti-Semitism in the schools at a younger age. So is there something that's being done to implement that into school curricula?
So look, I mean, first I want to say about Holocaust remembrance, and we just commemorate the International Day. My message when I was in a few of these events was that never again cannot stay as a slogan that we say once a year. This is really a call for action, and it needs to be a daily commitment to take action to protect Jewish communities around the world. So this means, yes, it needs to be, Holocaust remembrance needs to be part of the curriculum, which it is in many countries, but in most countries it is not. And this is not enough, because we cannot just educate and teach about dead Jews. We need to teach about the living ones. And what does it mean for the Jewish community in Germany today to live in Germany? What are they facing? What is their culture? And, you know, talking about the German Jewish community, they have a beautiful project that is called Meet a Jew. So basically they train their young people to go either physically or by Zoom around the country to different schools that invite them, non-Jewish schools, just to talk about what does it mean to be a Jew in Germany. Because most Germans, just like most Argentinians and most Mexicans, do not personally know a Jewish person. So they either know what is a Jew from a Woody Allen movie, which is not exactly, you know, we're not all that neurotic, or they just have this stereotype of a rich, greedy Jewish person that cares only about himself and you know, and does horrible things to society. So sometimes it's a very specific effort of, you know, per person, school, each municipality. But sometimes because we're using technology and we're trying to be as innovative as possible, so we have the possibility to do it in an easier way nationwide.
So how can people support? What can people do? What can Jewish people do on a local level right now to support and to protect themselves? And what can they do, I guess, with the ADL also?
So look, first of all, I really invite everybody to join us. We have our annual event in New York in March, Never Is Now, which is a fascinating event that focuses on fighting anti-Semitism, but really from an innovative point of view and engaging point of view of looking at the individual and saying what you as a Jewish person can do, or what you as a non-Jewish person can do to be an ally to your Jewish friends and colleagues. if it's, writing to your congressman on specific advocacy effort that we're doing, or if it's being active in your kid's school in fighting disinformation, and if it's online, reacting to anti-Semitic comments, or who do you report? So that's one. Secondly, as always, I encourage people to report. Okay, still there are a lot of people that are either experiencing or observing anti-Semitic incidents and just don't make the effort to report. It's important to file a report in our website. Also on our social media, there's so much information. We have so much calls for action that people can join and do to support this. We are, such a resilient people. Working in fighting anti-Semitism on a daily basis, Jonathan, can be a bit exhausting.
Yes, again. Yes, again. Yes.
But there's so many wonderful people that are willing to help and support and be part of it, and we need everybody on board.
I'll say whenever I post just an episode of this podcast, whether it has anything to do with Israel or not, I could just be talking to an author of their book, nothing Jewish even. I get trolled because of that. So it's amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
But Marina, I know you don't have a lot of time. I want to thank you for taking the time today, and so I could talk to you all day, but it was such a pleasure getting to hear about you and what we can do to fight anti-Semitism. So I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to come on with me today.
No, I'm grateful to you for the invitation, and also for bringing this subject here in your podcast. And look, I'm an optimistic person, just as it took years and years to get to the Abraham Accords. Mm-hmm. There's always hope, and things will get better, but we need to take action in order to make them better. It's not just going to be on its own.
Well, you're welcome back anytime. So hold on, I'll sign us out. Again, this has been The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen. Again, a very special thanks to Marina Rosenberg. And please like, comment, subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to The Jewish Lens, where all items used was strictly kosher.